lasted just 53 seconds was still an infinitesimally small margin to Valtteri Bottas, the man who had been signed up for another year in the very seat Russell coveted, and who was determined not to let the Brit make him look bad. On race day, though, Russell was on course to do exactly that. A young upstart with serious ambitions on debut, outdriving his far more experienced teammate who had driven past him and looked more than comfortable leading the race. But then, disaster struck. Mercedes botched a pit stop so badly that Russell had to return to the pits and get the right tyres fitted. In the confusion of a last-minute stop, the team had managed to fit Bottas's tyres to Russell's Mercedes, which is not allowed under motor racing regulations. His double pit stop saw him drop from first to fifth, but with the safety car deployed at the time, it was not game over by any stretch. But fate, not content with landing one sucker punch to Russell's gut, swung for him again. Having brilliantly overtaken Bottas for the second time in the race, he was up to second within 4 laps. There were still 14 to go, and Sergio Perez, the surprise leader who had been dead last at one point, was only 3.5 seconds ahead. Russell's first win was there for the taking. A first podium was in the bag, surely. "Looks like a rear left puncture," Russell's engineer told him over the radio with 8 laps to go. He could scarcely believe it, but there he was again in the pits, and as Perez crossed for the win a few minutes later, Russell went over in 9th. He was mentally and physically exhausted, and had his balaclava not already been wet through with sweat, it would have been further dampened by his tears. Once he had parked up, he could barely walk back to the Mercedes garage. His legs were cramping and stiff, and he waved off fans hoping for a picture. But before he had even made it to the garage, he dumped himself on a dusty concrete step and put his head in a towel. Someone passed him his water bottle and, with a 1,000-yard stare that told you all you needed to know, he wiped his eyes and tried to rehydrate. A few Mercedes team members came up to him and provided consolatory pats on his shoulder, but no words were exchanged. In that moment, Russell did not know about the tears of happiness that were in his stars. After winning his first points for Williams in Hungary in 2021 and then earning his first F1 race win in Brazil in 2022, this was a low, and he could only hope that highs would follow. But he could not know for sure that they would. He could only believe. Chapter 1. Early Days. Driving into the sleepy fenland village of Tid St Giles, there is a sign that warns you to reduce your speed. Periodically, it is amusingly vandalized to remove the first and last letter of the final word. But in its original form, it is a stern warning to those who want to treat the flattest part of England as a racetrack. To perhaps the village's most famous son, though, it might read as something of a challenge. In George Russell's line of work, speed is the only thing that matters. It's hard to overstate the contrast between the world Russell now inhabits, of sports cars, expensive watches and glamorous photo shoots, and the one in which he grew up, living in the tiny Cambridgeshire hamlet of Tid St Giles, wedged up against the Lincolnshire border and home to just a few hundred people and precious few children. There is little reason to have heard of the village before. A man called Mike Ashton made headlines in the 1980s after his local bungalow was subject to a police raid over a tobacco smuggling operation. Residents still remember the Sunday People double-page investigation, the helicopters overhead, and HMRC tearing the bungalow apart searching for evidence. Ashton, who said he had never done anything wrong, was in hiding from gangs involved in a £20 million a year racket moving cheap tobacco.